stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. If you have cell phones, please turn them off or silence them. We would appreciate that. Council, make sure you have your mics on. Yeah. Okay. Roll call. Lee, you're first up.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Here.
Councilor Burrell.
Here.
Councilor Lundstrom.
Here.
Councilor Sherman.
Here.
Councilor Spradlin.
Here.
Councilor Stroud.
Here. Okay, item 3, approval of the agenda of our regular meeting September 13th, 2021. Are there any additions or corrections to be made to the agenda for tonight?
There's one item that we need to correct. We had on here 2 executive sessions. One was in regards to the farm leases. That one should not be on there. The other one for central school incentives, that should be the one that's on there, the sole one.
It looks like the approval of the agenda, the date here states September 13th. I believe we're approving the agenda for tonight, which would be September 27th, unless I have a different copy than everyone else. And the minutes that we should be approving should be the minutes from September 13th, not August 23rd.
You passed.
I passed because that's not what I have on my copy.
Okay, noted those 2 corrections. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as corrected?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Councilor Stroud.
Yes.
Councilor Burrell.
Yes.
Councilor Spradlin.
Yes.
Councilor Sherman.
Yes.
Councilor Lundstrom.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Yes. Okay, under visitors and delegation, I have to ask the audience, is there anyone in attendance who would like to give comment to council that is not related to the Dardanus annexation hearing? If so, please raise your hand. Not related to Dardanus? Okay. I need to read this other section so you understand. Citizens are invited to speak to council on any item that does not have a public hearing scheduled. There is a 5-minute limit per person unless otherwise noted by the mayor. Each speaker will have 1 opportunity to address council, and please provide your name and address. Please note that no formal action will be taken on any item that is not on the posted agenda due to the open meetings law provision. However, they may be placed on a future posted agenda if action is required. To better assist you with these questions, please submit them in writing to the city clerk and someone from the staff will respond. There's a form over by the table if you'd like to fill that out. Okay. So we will go ahead and move to 6, management. 6A is the Dardanus agreement. Rick Rogley, City Administrator, Assistant, and Community Development Director for staff report.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Pro Tem. So we have talked, Greg Dardanus and I, and then Monty kind of followed up with when I was out of town. But if you look on your annexation agreement amendment, September 21st, on the back part of that, the second page, under 7, 8, and 11, those are the 3 areas that we amended to deal with the conditions that you guys sent me away with last time to deal with. And so I'm going to read to you where we had changed this and where we both come into agreement between the city and Greg Dardanus and his wife. So it's under the second paragraph, number 7, the second sentence. All city utilities and private service lines must not go through private property but extend on Mill Street west to a right-of-way of Morgan County Road 26.2 and connect in front of the proposed annexed parcel furthest north on Morgan County Road 26.2. The city shall provide $3,000 to owner as a contribution towards the installment and extension of the water lines. That's the area that we changed, and he agrees, and we both agree on that section. On number 8, the second sentence that reads, owner agrees to pay $18,000 in lieu of water. That is equivalent to 3 acre-feet of water for every acre that is annexed. So that's an agreement that we both decided on. And number 11, the last sentence of that paragraph, it starts with owner. It says, owner agrees to pay a $15,000 public improvement fee to be held indefinitely by the city for the future purpose of annexation and maintenance of Morgan County Road 26.2 and/or Mill Street, including but not limited to street, curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Those are the 3 areas where we have now come to an agreement and ready to move forward with this annexation. Any questions?
Council?
Good job.
All right. So, we need a motion to approve, if you so desire, the annex agreement.
Do we need to open?
Do we need to open the
I forget.
public hearing?
Pardon?
Don't we need to open?
No,
Or are we missing a part?
So the next part's gonna be your
opening.
Oh, okay.
opening that
Cool.
up. This right here is the amendment to the existing
Oh, cool.
annexation agreement.
So I would move to approve the amendment for the Dardanus annexation agreement. That work? So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom.
Yes.
Counselor Durrell,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Yes. Okay, so before I open the public hearing, that's where I'm going now. Before I open the public hearing, gentlemen, you had something you'd like to speak to council about? Please come up to the podium. Please identify yourself and your address where you live.
Nick Meeks, 17450 Beaver Creek Drive.
Okay.
I was just gonna touch on the farm leases. As far as, I guess, given the first right of refusal to the bids, with 2 of the farms, I've been farming them for a little over 15 years and would like to continue to farm them and just a right to match bids is about all, if I can.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Kimball, 16750 Highway 71 Brush. Nick's my son-in-law, so you can feel for him anyway. But addressing the same thing. And I'm sure that some of the council members aren't, give you some quick history. We started renting some of the city brush farm back in 2003 is when we show our first rental. And specifically the farm John Hines sold the city, and Milt Yulmhop sold a 74-acre farm to us. We rented those before they sold them and afterwards. And initially, I think we were on good terms with the landlords. They requested that we'd be able to keep farming them, and you kind of lose that authority once you sell the property. But that's the way it went, and I think for till about 2010-11, when the farms renewed, they did give us right to match the bids if we didn't have the high bids. And there was a time or two we were able to do that. And part of that's probably consideration that we'd been farming them for that long. Part of them that farming units take so many acres to support families, and part of your operation you depend on them for payments. And also if you're raising a perennial crop, it's nice to know that you might have that for more years. Or if you want to store up fertilizer, put some manure in for future years, if you're going to have it, you would do that. If you're going to lose it, you're probably going to mine that soil out, take what you can, because you're just improving it for the next guy if you can. But in 2014, we put Nick and my daughter under where we've been leasing the farms out, and they've been doing them since then, but they've been doing a great job, and we've had this discussion probably forever, Monty would say, and it's kind of always been up in the air. And I can see both sides for it, that you'd like to have it open for everybody, but I can also see the sides from the farm families, that these young people get it part of their operations, and they're depending on it, and then Nick's situation, if he loses these two farms, they're losing a third of their acres. And he has done a great job keeping it clean. He's been putting manure on, which I frown doing that on rented ground, because the manure is good for the future years, and he's put a lot of that on, and he won't get the benefit out of it. That's all I want. If you guys have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell. Okay. Anyone else have anything that's not going to be part of the Dardanus? Okay. So I'll be opening the public hearing, which was continued from September 13th, council meeting. It's the Dardanus annexation, annexing a certain unincorporated parcel of land, Lot 3, Townsend Minor subdivision, a part of the south one half, southwest quarter of Section 33, Township 4 North, Range 56 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado, otherwise known as Dardanus annexation to the city of Brush, Colorado. At this time, I am reopening the Dardanus public hearing, which was continued from the September 13th meeting. We have a staff report from Rick Roblin.
Since our continued meeting, what I read to you earlier was the amended section. That was the conditions agreed upon, and so we're ready to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Rick. The applicant is not in the audience. Is there a representative for the applicant? Hearing none, we will go on to the public testimony. By show of hands, how many of the attendees would like to address council on the public testimony part of the hearing in regards to the Dardanus annexation? No hands? Okay, final questions. I invite City Council to ask any further questions they may have. Hearing none, we will, a motion to close the public hearing. I'd like for a motion to do that.
I move we close the public hearing.
We have a motion. Second?
Second.
A second. Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Guerrero,
Yes.
Counselor Strau,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Yes. Okay, we have first reading ordinance number 890-21, an ordinance annexing a certain unincorporated parcel of land, Lot 3, Townsend Minor subdivision, a part of the south one half, southwest one quarter of Section 33, Townsend 4 North, Range 56 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado, to the city of Brush, Colorado. I need a member of council. We'll need to introduce the ordinance by title.
I guess I would like to introduce ordinance number 890-21, an ordinance annexing a certain unincorporated parcel of land, Lot 3, Townsend Minor subdivision, a part of the south half, southwest quarter of Section 33, Township 4 North, Range 56 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, Morgan County, Colorado, to the city of Brush, Colorado.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve and publish the ordinance?
I'll move to approve and publish ordinance.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Counselor Guerrero,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Counselor Strau,
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Yes. Okay, we move to D, first reading ordinance number 888-21, an ordinance amending Chapter 8, Article 1 of the Brush Municipal Code, adopting the 2020 edition of the Model Traffic Code. Dan, are you going to speak to this?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. This is the same model traffic code adoption that we've been going over. It just brings us up to the 2020 version. The one change of note that we have been discussing is the camper rule, and I think that I have drafted what council wants, but happy to make any changes or anything you'd like.
Okay, I need a member of council to introduce the ordinance by title.
I'd like to introduce ordinance number 888-21, an ordinance amending Chapter 8, Article 1 of the Brush Municipal Code, adopting the 2020 edition of the Model Traffic Code.
Do we have a motion to approve and publish the ordinance?
I'll move we approve and publish the ordinance.
A second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes. Just so we're on the same page here. Actually, no. I'm sorry, I was thinking of something else.
Okay.
I was just kidding. Make sure you're ready.
Okay, roll call vote then.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Counselor Garrell,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to farm lease bid approval. Monty Torres, City Administrator, will speak to that.
Okay, in your packet, there is the results of the sealed bids that were opened on September 22nd. We went through the normal process of advertising it, through the paper, through Facebook, and then also letting the various farmers, the tenant farmers, be aware that those leases were up and we were advertising those. And you'll see what the original bids were from 2015, and then you'll see what bids that we received on the 22nd. We're pretty confident in the process that we used as far as advertising this, because we used a very open process. We did get a request in regards to the matching the highest bid. And I did visit with the mayor a little bit about that, just to see if there's any general feelings of changing what we do. But I also went back and had Loranda look at the history of this, and Mr. Kimball did a good job explaining that, but there's a couple other things that did occur as well. We did visit about this, the council, a number of years ago, and the council was more inclined to go with or actually gave direction to go with an open competitive process and not have the matching the highest bid. When we did that, the other concession that we made to help the tenant farmers was making, instead of a 3-year lease, we went to a 5-year lease, because we heard the same thing about if you're gonna put money into it, you need a little more time to get your money back out of it. So we did go to 5 years, and then this last year, because we did have the COVID situation, and we had a lot of different things going on, Dell and I, we came to council and just said we wanted to go extend it one more year. And so we did extend it, instead of it being a 5-year, it went to a 6-year for most of those that had the long-term agreements with us. So we did make those adjustments in the past, and the council, you can see all the different bids that were put out there, so it did do its job as far as making it more competitive. And so with that, unless the council had any reason why they would not want to go with the highest bids, we're proposing to go with the highest bids that we received on the 22nd.
I got a question. So you said a previous council made the decision?
I think it was like between 2010, 2012, in that
But
range.
things change. Should the current council be making that decision if it happens every 5 years?
Right, you can make the decision any year that you choose to. So that's what the council chooses, but we've made adjustments in the past based upon these things, and the council can always make their decisions. And we did put this on a work session for after this, in case the council did not want to go with the highest bids.
Because you already took the bids. That's kind of the thing that bothered me. I wish we could have made this decision before all that came about.
Right, and so with the bids, that was one of the issues that we had, is we already had put the bids out there, and then it was the week prior, I believe it was the week prior to when they were due, we made the decision to extend it, because we had some of the farmers ask the question and wanted to visit with the city.
I'd rather wait and see what the council thinks about it.
I'm gonna support Larry in that and say that I'm wholly uncomfortable right now. I do not feel that I have a good enough knowledge and understanding, especially because we had questions coming out of the last city council meeting. I'd like to be able to make a better informed decision instead of messing with people's livelihoods uninformed.
Right.
And I'll throw out there that I mentioned last time, this isn't, filling a hole in the ground. There's a bit of art to farming where consistency and continuation can't be overestimated, I think. So I think I would support them as well.
I'd just like to know I had a few people contact me over this, or a couple people contact me, and there seemed to be some kind of understanding that the right of refusal was possibly gonna be looked at in this go-around, so I'd just like to get a little better grasp of where that confusion came from, possibly, and, get a little more on your side on it.
I think it came from last meeting because these guys weren't here, so we didn't know. This is kind of the first we've all heard of it, so we kind of said, well, is that a thing? So we would ask Dan if it's a thing. So I think that's probably where it came from.
Dan, what kind of pickle does this put us in, since we've already kind of
It doesn't,
accepted?
no pickle, because we have the right to refuse any and all bids.
Okay. Yeah, so I'd like to discuss it a little more in work session, executive session. Work session.
Are we talking about discussing it in the work session then?
Yeah, it's in our, I
I know
put
it's-
that there
yeah.
just
It's
in
in an
case.
executive session too, isn't it?
That's what we took off of the executive session, because that was a communication issue between Miranda and I. That was supposed to be Westwood, was supposed to be on there, but the farm went on there instead.
Okay, so, I'll ask for a motion.
But can I just, so we have Westwood on, we don't have it on a work session for today. Can we add it as a work session for today so we can,
Get the ball rolling.
get the ball rolling for you guys?
Oh, it came off of the work session.
Dan?
So, we could do that. Another option is we could move back into executive session if council's more comfortable with that. It's a little less orthodox, but I think that would be permissible here. I'd like to remind council that no decisions would be made in an executive session, so we would essentially be discussing the various positions without reaching any.
Which would be,
Executive session?
Yep.
Is that your desire?
Yep.
Okay, we'll move it into executive session. Okay, let's move on to finance.
Okay. I move we approve disbursements and payroll from September 14th to September 27th, 2021 in the amount of $370,000, or $388. Math is hard. $370,388.56.
Okay. We have a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Counselor Guerrero,
yes.
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Scalisi.
Yes. Okay, at this time, we're gonna move into the 2022 budget, public work session, department heads, present line items. We have a request from Joanne Gosling, Finance Director, to start the ball rolling, so you're up, Joanne.
So in your packets this evening was the line items for the 2022 budget. These are gonna be presented by the department heads. They won't go through every line item because those, for the most part, they're pretty status quo. What they're gonna go through is items that's $1,000 or greater in change. There's no personnel discussed tonight or any of that type of stuff. It's just strictly their line items that they manage. And there are numbers in this section, starting with number 1, and the numbers are in that upper right-hand corner. I'm not sure what page they start on if you're in your computers, but they do have in the upper right-hand corner number 1. So we'll start out with Derek Boss, and he goes from number 1 through 11 is his pages.
Good evening, Council. I don't have a lot of change this year, just 3 significant things. The first one is the county IT budget item. In the past 2 years, we've had quite a few infrastructure issues with county IT, network upgrades and whatnot, and those are finished. So I've decreased that by $2,000, which still leaves room for incidentals, but that is more than comfortable for what I'm asking. I'm increasing my travel and training budget by $2,000, so it's kind of a wash, but that comes from the state's continued cutbacks on training funds available for law enforcement. With that, we still have increased mandates on what we need to do for training, so I'm just asking for a little extra money there to help us out. And then my last change of note is my fuel budget. I'm asking for a pretty significant increase there. From January 1 of this year until September, there's been a 65% increase in the price of fuel in the state of Colorado. So I'm asking for a 70% increase in that line item. The predictions are that fuel prices will be stable for the most part through 2022. I do expect to go over my line item this year. Not significantly because we're short-staffed, but I am asking for a 70% increase, which works out to a $16,800 increase over this current year. That is all I've got. Any questions?
Is this reports too? We have a separate staff report?
Reports is after this.
Oh, so-
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Chief. Okay, let's, Lance Sweat. Cemeteries, parks, recreation, and golf course.
Yeah, and like Chief Boss, I really don't have a lot of change in our budget. Just a couple ones I'd like to bring your attention to is on page 31. With one of our programs this next year, I will be requesting an additional $1,000 for the Brush Rush. It'll be our 40th annual Brush Rush, and so we plan on maybe doing a little bit something extra for that. And it's been a long-standing event for us, so I thought it'd be kind of nice to celebrate that and do a little bit more for that. If you go to page 33, one thing that's really increased was this past year has been flag football. In years past, we've only budgeted $2,000, and that takes care of all the paint, the flags, the shirts, and everything. We got a major increase over the last couple of years, and it was I estimated that we will need $3,500 for next year for the same program. I just think with COVID and everything, kids are doing more and more activities, which is a good thing for us, and so I did up that by $1,500. And then finally, in the golf course, page 46, there's 3 of them. Cart rental. We are now leasing our carts instead of having our own carts, and with that being said, our revenues are extremely high, but also there's a little bit more of an expense. So we're covering the cost, but I am raising that from $18,000 to $19,500 for our cart rentals. The other 2 is our bar expense. For purchase of alcohol, we were at $40,000. In previous years, we're trying to up that to $45,000. We're doing very well within the bar and restaurant as far as business and everything. So That one and the one right below it, the restaurant experience. In previous years, we had been doing $80,000, but we're requesting $105,000 this year because we have had such good business there over this past year. I think a lot of that too is related to COVID and when we did the carry out and all that sort of thing, but it is getting busier and busier, and we're just keeping up that. The revenues will reflect, though, the raise in costs also. So is there any other questions that I can answer? That's pretty much all the major ones that I had. Everything else is pretty much status quo.
Any idea on the brush rush, what you plan on doing?
Well, I know we'll do pancakes.
That makes sense.
Every 5 years we do the pancake breakfast, but I don't know. We were trying to. I went through and all the old winners and everything like that, and I think I have about. I have right now at least 30 of the old shirts, so I'm thinking about doing a really nice quilt for the overall winner that has all the logos of the shirts from the last 40 years.
That'd be really cool.
So trying to track those down. You know, there's some pretty holy ones I see some people still wearing, but I'm still trying to track all those down. So trying to do that. Any other questions?
Thanks, Lance.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Dale Corrick, streets, water, trash, wastewater, and stormwater.
Thank you, Mayor. As Joanne alluded to earlier, it's pretty much status quo. We do have a few changes. On page 51, you'll see line item building shop 1205. This is what we use for consumables within the shop, things like paper towels, rags, if you get window cleaner or anything like that. So anything consumables, and we've been seeing a slight increase in some of the consumables on that one there. So last year this year for 2021, we requested 6,000. We're gonna up that to 7,000 for next year. Inflation really hasn't totally moved through the public works, but it's starting to see just a little bit, starting to feel it just a little bit. The next item will be for gas and oil as well. That would be line item on page 52, line item 1702. Last year, we budgeted 25,000, and as what was stated earlier with Chief, we're expecting fuel prices to be stable, but we're going to increase it by another $1,000 on that one as well, just to have that safe buffer. We don't know what type of winter we're going to have, so. Moving from there, we go to the water department, and the water department is static. It's not increasing any of its line items. However, keep in mind, 2023, we'll probably be investing quite a bit more money into engineering as well as consulting fees, as well as legal. Moving on to trash and garbage. We had a slight increase on page 61 under general services, line item 1402 for electric and gas. We were very close. If we look at our projections, we're very close to that 5,000 that we've been looking at. As we all know, energy prices have been increasing slightly, so we feel a little comfortable by upping that by 1,000 from 5,000 to 6,000 for the year 2022. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but on page 62, under vehicle O&M, under repairs, we bought new trash trucks so we wouldn't have to spend large volume quantities of money on repairing these trash trucks. However, with the emissions controls that we've had on these machines, and we've had some failures of those and supply chain issues, unfortunately, we're looking at doubling that from 7,000 to 15,000 because it's been really tough this last 6 months or so. And then from there, we'll move on to wastewater department. On page 65, you'll see line item 1206. And last year, we had put in $20,000 for chemicals. These are chemicals we use to help thicken our biosolids and our sludge and such. And with that, we just suddenly got hit with a 40 cents a pound increase 1st of September on our chemical. So these are things that are beyond our control. This is typically related to the Gulf Coast area. Of course, we know that we had a pretty bad winter down there, plus we had a couple of storms that have really shut down supplies. And so with that, they're gonna make an increase from $20,000 to $30,000 for chemicals. And a $10,000 increase just so we're covered. And it is actually a necessary part of the treatment process to have these chemicals. And we don't control the costs, unfortunately. Then on page 66, under permit fees, just like every other agency that's increasing their fees, so is the various other agencies, such as the health department, they're a good portion of it. Our USGS stream gauge contribution, our Endangered Species Act contribution, all these prices have gone up over the years. And so we're going to see an increase from $20,890 in 2021 to an anticipated $22,230 in 2022. Then finally, on page 67, under line item 1553, sewers cleaned, we're going to increase that roughly by $6,000 this upcoming year. Just like our costs have been increasing, we contract out to have our sewers cleaned, and just like our costs have been increasing, so have their costs, whether it's personnel, insurance, fuel, everything like that, and of course that just gets passed on to the customers. Finally, you have stormwater, and if there are no changes, just like water, no changes in stormwater. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
No question, but a comment, the sidewalks are looking good. Yeah.
We're getting there.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Rick Kroglian, Community Development Marketing and the Airport.
All right, so if you look on page 73, there's a couple things to note. Joanne and I have taken two departments, marketing and community development, and then made them one, since we don't have a marketing director anymore, and it makes it easier to kind of keep track of all of our, which department this is going under. Since we have our own building now, it's kind of streamlining it. So some of these numbers will look higher, lower, it's because of the expenses that it's taken to build and update the building. But second is, when you combine them, it's gonna double now. So it's gonna look bigger than really what it was, even though it's pretty much the same. But I'll go through areas that changed. Office supplies, it went down because we're gonna consolidate now, so it's gonna be different. On page 73, if you look down in the general service area, under section 1404, association dues, that went up because we doubled it. So both departments, both marketing and community development is under one now, so we went ahead and just combined as one. Then the line item below that, travel and training, went up slightly because of other trainings that I'll be doing, and I'll go through some details in just a minute. And building maintenance, 2021 estimate, we did a lot of maintenance stuff, 20,000, so we're gonna drop that down to something realistic, so it'll be 7,500. In page 74, outreach, we increased a little bit because there was not a category for certain marketing things, so we went ahead and created some of the marketing opportunities under outreach. So one of the examples, we're putting stakeholder meetings, all our stakeholder lunches and things like that, we're just putting that there, so it did increase a little bit. And then now for specifics, if you go to page 76, office supplies, we just increased it by 1,000, and there's a lot more things that we're printing out. We have a plotter that we're using now for maps, and we're just increasing a little bit. Just that we have a lot more people in the department, so it's going to be used a lot more. On page 77, there was a typo there. Under 1317 fee rebate incentive, it wasn't 5,000, it was 25,000, so we're just keeping that the same. On page 78, association dues, it looks like a significant jump from 1,700 to 63, but it's combined both departments now. And then there's certain things that I am a member of that I haven't paid that I am paying for now. And so, for example, the American Planning Association, that $600 that was added. Economic Development Code, or Economic Development Council of Colorado is added, and then the CPM, which is a Colorado or Certified Public Manager Certificate. That's a program that Monty's asked me to go through. It takes about a year to two to go through, and that's what the cost for the program is. And it goes through all different types of departments training, so it's a good one. And then the training underneath that's all the travel, conferences, and things like that. That's both departments that were singled out before, now they're together. That's where that goes to. If you go to page 79, it shows a computer maintenance budget. This was something that we added that we didn't have, and now that we have multiple people in our department, different computers, there's maintenance that goes involved. So, that's the total of what we're putting into that. So that could be a number of things from software, streamlining for our department, and that was an expense that we didn't have last year. Building maintenance, that's another one that increased, and that's just hard cost of cleaning, HVAC, all these kind of things that we didn't have before, and that went up for there. On page 80, outreach, this is newsletters, 4th of July celebration, purchase of an animal, stakeholders lunches, that's where I said we increased it slightly, and that will reflect that. And marketing, if you go to page 82, that's where you'll see how everything is zeroed out for this year, so that there's no more monies taken from that. We put it all in the other, so it's streamlined, so we'll see one budget from here on out for community development. And you'll also see that reflected on 84 of advertising. We did have monies in there, but we put it now into the other budget, so that zeroes that will zero out. Airport, everything stays the same. So all the same budgets, we're budgeting the same for this year. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Rick.
You're welcome.
Questions? Thank you, Rick. Okay, Ted Anderson, Fire Department. Chief Anderson.
Good evening. So we're pretty much status quo. Two items that we're looking at, increasing tools and equipment with our annual testing, pump testing, ladder testing, hose testing, those types of things. Those costs are going up, so we're asking for a $3,000 increase there. And then our protective equipment, so our bunker gear, things like that, costs again going up. So we're looking at a $1,000 increase there. And that's it. Everything else stays the same.
Okay. Any question? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Deanna Schwint, the Deputy City Clerk and the Municipal Court.
The only notable change this year to be set aside for city clerk is a new desk.
That's it, one new desk.
That's all it says.
Too easy, too easy.
I don't ask for much. No, we don't ask for much.
Okay, thank you, Dee. Okay, we'll move on to Monty Torres, Legislative, Executive, City Administrator for the City of Brush.
Okay, this is page 102, and the legislative budget, that is actually the city council's budget, and the only thing I really changed there, because we're gonna have some new members, but we also have some current board members who are more active than in the past, so I just bumped up the travel training a little bit there. The one thing that I mentioned to some of the council members, don't worry about it too much on this. If it's got $8,000 there. If there's more trainings that you decide to go to and it's above that, we can always adjust that. It's not a big deal. It's just, we don't know what trainings you're going to select, and how much they're gonna cost, so we just bumped it by 1,000. Page 104 is the executive budget. That's the mayor's budget. And I did go quite a bit higher on this one because we'll have a new mayor in place. And I just was guessing that they're probably gonna get more training and classes, more trips, just being new. So I doubled that from the 12 or 15, or not doubled it, but went up like $900 to $2,400 in that budget. The city administrator's budget, 106. Everything stayed pretty much the same except for travel training. I went up $700 there. All these conferences and or any travel you do is more costly than it was a couple years ago. So last year, we didn't do a whole lot of training, but upcoming, going back to normal, I see the prices going up a little bit. And if you go to page 110, this is the administrative department. This is all the admin. And on office supplies, we've just seen office supplies getting more expensive. And so we estimated about $11,000 this current year, so we bumped it up to $12,000 on office supplies. And then on the audit, we've got some great auditors, but they're getting more expensive too. Joanne does a great job where she does a lot of the prep work for them to save money for the city. So a lot of the work that they need to do, she organizes it prior. That saves on the time from the auditors. But prices are slowly going up, so I figure theirs is as well. Banking fees, we just saw a trend going upwards, so we went from 1,500 to 3,000. And then on telephone, a little bit of a guess here because we have moved our phone systems around quite a bit, and we have a new phone system in place. We have more cost to that phone system, but then it runs through our internet and everything, so I didn't quite know how the savings on it being over the internet type phones now for long distance, things like that, I don't know how that plays out yet. So I went ahead and put 15,000, and hopefully it doesn't cost that much for the new service and everything, but you just don't know until we let that ride for a couple, 2 or 3 years. And then building maintenance has been a little pricier lately. We do anticipate doing some upgrades in City Hall this upcoming year. But in the meantime, there's gonna be more cost, just general maintenance. And then if you go to page 111 on employee incentives, this is the line item where Christmas party comes out of, the bonuses come out of, city picnic comes out of, the float for the parade comes out of that. And each year we've been bumping that up a little bit because as you grow in number of employees, that your bonuses, those get a little bit higher there too. So I went from 22,000 to 24,000. And that is all of my budgets.
Okay, any questions for Monty? Hearing none, we'll go to staff reports. Rick Rogland.
I know I saw something, a letter that was passed out to you guys. It's concerning building contractor and fees. I'm happy to talk to you offline about that, but that's not something that we took lightly to do. That was a lot of time that we took to do that. So offline, we can talk about that. Building department's doing great. David has continued to streamline and do well. We have 2 part-timers right now, one in the morning time and one in the afternoon. The morning one is, she's, a regular, she's done many kind of things in her life, so she's grasping the building permits and all that kind of stuff right now. The afternoon is a high schooler, and so she's kind of a learning curve. This is her first job, and so we have to kind of really watch and kind of train to make sure she understands what she's doing, but she's very intimidated. But this is a great opportunity to expose people to new careers and things like that. So we have one in the morning that has grasped everything and can actually do permits and knows how to do complex things. In the afternoon, it's a learning curve. So, and we knew that was going to happen like that, so it's a good thing.
Rick, and then just for the record, the letter that you're talking about was from Jeff Hammer. Is that the one you were talking about? Just so everyone knows which letter.
We got a couple
We
tonight,
got a
so we
couple
just needed
letters.
Oh,
clarity.
good.
Just want to make sure that
Yeah.
everyone's tracking.
You can read the letter, and I'm happy to respond, but it's a lot of speculation on that, so that's on there.
Okay.
And I think everything else is doing well. We just went to CML. It was awesome to spend time with many of you counselors. Got to know you in ways I didn't know. And I guess what stays there, what happens there stays there. Is that right, Larry?
Yeah, we're gonna treat that like Vegas.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yeah. So it was an awesome opportunity. I think a lot of us were inspired to think and out of the box things. And I've actually started initiating some of the conversations with some people about co-response things already. So I'm excited about it. But that's really all I've done to respond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Derek Boss?
We are testing tomorrow for some positions, which is exciting because we finally have some applications coming in, so that's good news for us. Several of you asked me at different times, so I'll just update you all at once on the 247 Applewood, which is where we've had a lot of junk accumulated. At the last court appearance, the judge issued a $10,000 fine, which was suspended, giving the individual 7 days to clean up the property. Some of it was cleaned up, some of it is not, so he'll be back in court in October. Still working on that. The property owner is working with us as well, so we were trying to get it resolved. Some of this will also be touched on in the work session and some of the challenges we've had on the nuisance abatement. Sergeant Flecksteiner from our department was able to attend the FBI Command College last week, which is a very high-level, executive-level training course. It's tough to get in, and it was just a great opportunity for our agency to send somebody to that, so I'm very happy that he did well there. And we continue to be very busy. Nothing's changed there, so that's all I've got.
I got a question or a
Yes, sir.
comment. I'm gonna have a question for you in 2 weeks, actually, but I'll let you know what it is now, so you have to think about it. At CML, we attended a co-responders session. You're familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
So, talking to him, if I was in a bigger city, I'd be all for this, because I know it's a need for it.
Yes.
So, the question I'll have for you in 2 weeks is, how much of our calls for the police have to do with mental illness, would you say, percentage-wise? You can answer me in 2 weeks to think about it or whatever. Is it a big problem here? Because the thing that we had talked about was the fact that sometimes we send young cops to these calls, and they're not prepared for some of this stuff, because why would they be if it's got to do with mental illness, you know?
Right.
So I was blown away. That was my favorite session we had there. It was the police chief in Fort Collins, Jeff. So yeah. Yeah.
Swoboda, I think.
Yeah.
Swoboda?
Swoboda,
That's
yeah.
why we go with Jeff.
Because I'm pretty sure we slaughtered that. But I'd be real curious if it would work in our small town, and your thoughts about it. I mean, absolutely think about it.
So I'll dive in now. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but we do go to quite a number of mental health calls. One thing we do in our agency that's a little unique, even within our county, all of our officers go through what's called CIT training, which is critical incident, something I don't remember what the T stands for. Most agencies, that is a specialty, so only maybe 10% to 25% of the officers go through CIT. Our agency, it's 100%, and that is targeting interactions with mental health persons. So they have, usually within the first year of working here, they have a very good skill set of communication, how to de-escalate, how to interact with those individuals. I think that does bump us up against most other departments, gives us extra skill sets. The co-responder model is a great idea, however, funding and, looking at it region-wide, excuse me, in Denver, for example, you have multiple resources to pitch at that. We have Centennial Mental Health for 8, 9 counties, and so it's just not practical to have one mental health worker work for Rush Police Department. There was a conversation earlier this year, late last year, of what if we do a region-wide co-responder where I would commit one officer for a day or a week to the program, and they would go anywhere in the region. But now you look at response times of here to Burlington is 2 to 3 hours.
Right.
Doesn't make sense. Something Centennial Mental Health did during the COVID last year that was very successful, and I'd love to see them bring it back. They issued us iPads. So when we would go contact somebody in a mental health crisis, we could FaceTime with a caseworker right then and there. And it actually, in my opinion, worked better than a co-responder program because there's no lag time. The officers have it. We're not waiting for somebody else to come in, and there's that instant communication. We loved it. It was very successful. They got special funding for it through the COVID. It's gone away. I know they're talking about bringing that back. To me, that would be the happy medium. But beyond that, I got to look into the statistics and see what those actually are.
Because Dana had a good idea about some local therapists, right? Like our volunteer downtown as well.
It was me. I actually spoke with the police chief, and I also spoke with their clinician, and they do have 2 clinicians that are in ride-alongs with police officers. Statistically, though, it is definitely a challenge, especially when you look at the numbers. They had, I believe, he said, 252 post-certified officers to 175,000 people. That's actually a worse ratio per citizen than we have. And so that creates a bit of a challenge. Knowing that you guys have that iPad option for FaceTime with BOCES, I think that's absolutely fantastic. Obviously, the co-response hit home with all of us that were in the session.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we do want to be addressing the mental health issues. So I would love it if maybe that's something we could work with you on. I did get information from the chief and the clinician that was there, Stephanie, I believe is her name. And they said that they'd be willing to help us out and look at different ways that we could actually get something funded. Not sure that it will necessarily be their model,
Right.
but that we could work to get grants and to get something funded to help support our department, because we all know that mental health obviously plays a huge role in a lot of what we see when you guys are all called out. So I would like to look at it more, but it's not something we can take up the whole night with tonight.
So we did also participate in a survey study, I believe through Yale University. I could be wrong on that. But they studied policing and rural mental health in the United States. And we were one of 12 departments they looked at. And they looked at everything, hospital, EMS, fire, police, availability of services. And when they're finished, so we went through our end of it. By the end of this year, actually going to study back with recommendations of here's what you've got for resources in your area and here's how you can maximize that.
The other piece of it that I really found that was really interesting, and I think would also benefit our department, was the fact that the clinician being around and being comfortable with staff can help support staff. Because I know firsthand, just because my husband was law enforcement and he's still a first responder, some of the things that you guys see are pretty rough. And so we definitely want to make sure that you guys are getting that support piece. So I think forgive me for not having a better adage, but killing two birds with one stone, but I think that would be great. So I'd love to talk about it more if we could.
Yeah, and the thing with the clinician was awesome was that we have a problem with the going to jail thing now. You guys have to call. The thing that was cool was they could diagnose that problem right there. So, because right now, the cops in Fort Collins were taking them to jail or the emergency room, where they just give them something to calm them down. Then that problem becomes a problem again the next day.
Right.
But now they have this secondary diversions they were talking about. So they get back a hold of that person, say, you're doing good. Or so they give the example about that lady with the 6-month-old baby in the middle of the road just screaming like crazy. Well, they got her the help she needs, you know what I mean?
Right.
So now she's not a problem to them anymore,
Right.
So it eliminated that down the road. So, but if you think we're comfortable, Chief, that's why I wanted to pick your brain about it. Because usually when you have a problem, you tell us, or a need. So,
Right.
but it was just interesting. It really was. I wish it was a video we could. I don't know if they have those for CML. Do they have those?
They do have the slides available on CML, so we can pull their entire PowerPoint off of the CML website.
Yeah, it was cool though. I really liked it. So.
Good. And just one final point, we do have a very robust officer wellness program. So we have a lot of avenues for the officers if they have a crisis or a rough day. That's near and dear to me, so.
Do they utilize it?
I can't answer that well because a lot of it's anonymous.
Okay,
And it's designed that way.
right.
They have to be able to go in and talk without any fear of me finding out or anything else. The stuff I do know about, yes, it is utilized and utilized well.
Okay.
So I did the second one with police too. There was
You said you were working on it too,
chief
right?
from Commerce City, and they had a problem with the officers because they had one that had just started. She saw her first dead body and spent the next 3 days trying to figure out how to quit. So he said they had to get them special therapy. They got them a lot of. So if that's ever a problem, they told me let us know to get our people the help they need. You know what I mean? So.
Yes.
And a lot of them wouldn't go to the therapist. They said it was awkward because that cop would just sit there and stare at them for an hour until they got to go because they forced them to go. So he said they made the therapist just kind of hang around the office with the police officers so they got comfortable with this lady. And so, but now it's used like crazy down there. He says it's really been an asset to them. So,
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Chief.
Chief. Ted Anderson.
Not a lot going on. We did have a booth at Oktoberfest. I talked to Ray about it. I was out of town. But it wasn't visited well.
You were kind of hidden.
You were very hidden.
Yeah, I wasn't there, so I'm not sure where they were at, so.
It was actually a booth, but it was 3 vehicles too, piece of equipment out there.
Right,
So it was a big footprint.
right.
But, yeah,
It's hard to miss those big red trucks,
yeah.
but.
I tried, Chief. There was a little boy that got lost at the DJ booth. He was probably 4, and I didn't know what to do with him because scared of me. So I said, "Do you like firefighters? You want to see a fire? The fire stuff?" He's all, "No." I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
You should have tried the police.
I should have. Well, the one came in top, forgot him, so.
But we do have 2 new applicants in the process, so that's some good news for moving forward, so. Other than that,
Are we encouraged on the,
Training centers ordered.
yep. Contract signed. Right. That's awesome.
cool.
Chief, do you have any updates on the coal fire at Pawnee? We keep getting asked, and so obviously we had the biggest response locally, so we're getting asked if our guys are still out there, if it's still burning, what's going on with that?
So they have been actively removing coal from the facility. The last I talked to them, they had 2/3 of it out. They were working on the bottom third of that. They were able to get equipment into the building and were able to get people into the building. It was safe for them. So I haven't talked to them in the last week, but they should be very close to having the coal out of the building, which then eliminates the fire problem.
They being Savage?
Savage is part of it. They've had a couple other contractors out there that have been working on it.
So we don't have any fire crews out there?
We haven't had fire crews out there since the state
Okay,
pulled out.
thank
So,
you.
Thanks, Ted.
That's that.
Okay, Lance?
Just one thing, we are having a public meeting on October 6th, next Wednesday, over at the golf course. We are putting papers together, concept papers for Great Outdoors Colorado for the property at the middle school, as far as the development of that half. And so GOCO recommended that we do some public input, and we do have a rough design of what we want to do. But we're asking the public to come out there at 7 o'clock at the golf course to give us any suggestions and everything like that. And then we will be submitting concept papers by November 22nd. And then GOCO will then decide whether it's worthy enough to go on to a formal application.
That's for the middle school?
Through the Well School District, yeah. The old middle school, yes, yes.
Did we ever get that thing with the well figured out?
That's still being worked on right now. There's some water court issues we've got to go through, and then also negotiations with a water company, irrigation company, and ditch company. And then from that point, we can make those decisions. But we have offered up for the school district to tie on to the current city system. But then once we get the well going, which could be a couple of years even, you know, we hope it's faster than that, but you don't know about the water courts, you know. And then at that point in time, switch over to the well.
And with GOCO, school districts can't apply for it. They gotta apply through the municipality, even though the school district owns that property. So it's just something that we're working together on and stuff. So that's all I got.
Hey, Lance, I wanted to publicly acknowledge you specifically for putting in your whole day at the Oktoberfest, and the football people that you had out there and the girls that were out there. They helped tremendously with helping getting the booth set up and everything. And Dale, your people with setting up the electricity, and so all your departments, the whole city was there. Monty was grilling brats, and his daughters were working very hard. He's a slave driver. But anyways, the city really pitched in to make what I perceived it to be as a huge success. So thank you, and pass that along to your people.
I know the kids really enjoy it. When we ask them each year, the middle school kids, they get there and they're kind of tired because it's 6:30 in the morning. But you know, once the first few vendors get there, they enjoy it. They interact with them, and the vendors were very kind to all of them too. And it's what a great event. I think it's it's good to have here.
Yeah, hey,
So.
Joanne, she was the gatekeeper.
Yeah, she was a gatekeeper.
Oh, she's mean. Thank you, Joanne. Okay, Dale Collin.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. And you're right, she turned me away twice. I have a few items to bring you up to date on. One of them is going to be the Sidewalk Project. We're moving along. It's getting close to the very end. We are so very close. So I think the last of the sidewalk pours will be done tomorrow. And then from there on out, we're just looking at finishing up the half drives, as well as some of the tie-ins and the landscaping. And then I've heard that it's gonna be probably mid-October before they'll be able to get in here and restripe the highway and do any of that work. But it's looking good. I've had a lot of good compliments on it, and I'm really liking the way it's turning out, so.
That's good.
And so now, I think our next push will be to try to get all the property owners not to put salt on new concrete. Please do not use salt on new concrete. So we'll be working on that. Next is our road preservation projects. We're entering the second half of that, and that is our slurry ceiling. We, as most everybody who's ever tried to drive through town today will notice that we had some streets closed off to allow the slurry to actually cure. And so it's looking nice, it's coming on nicely. We did a lot of crack filling last year to kind of prep for this upcoming, and it's looking really good. I'm really happy with the way it's turning out. We'll do some tomorrow, probably Spruce, and then a couple of the east-west streets, as well as over on the west side of town. And so, one of the things that I will bring up, though, is we've been somewhat behind a little bit on what, I think Monty has expressed his concern that we're not going as fast as what we've had. And I know there's been a couple projects that we've just not been able to get on contractors' lists. So that brings up another good point that I'll be coming to you very shortly, looking for some bid awards. I talked to the contractors, and I'm like, wow, why can't I get on your list anymore? And they're saying because now the way that the fiscal budgets are with whether it's federal or CDOT, they have to bid out in October and award no later than November. My dilemma is I'm not gonna have a budget approved by that time, so I'm gonna really be leaning on you to help with these projects. So anyway, so that's where we're at with that.
Point to that is the council approved the priorities of streets. And so we're gonna, for 3 to 5 years, we're gonna go heavy on streets, including the painting. And we'll get a status on the yellow paint.
Just came in Friday. Just came in Friday.
But we're gonna keep pushing on that, and the way it used to always work in the past was to get the greatest deal ever and spend the limited dollars that we had. We would have to wait till the companies came out here and said, this is what we can do, when we can come to your streets. But now we just gotta be ahead of the curve, or we're not gonna, with all this additional stimulus money, everyone's gonna be trying to get these contractors, and we're not gonna get them unless we approve those contracts this year for next year. So we've gotta be ahead.
Yeah, and Joanne gave me some great pointers on that. Things like making sure that it's very clear that this is for 2022. And also our little escape clause that if the money's not appropriated for it, sorry, we have to reject it.
And a lot of these funds come from the 2A fund, which was sales tax. Dan was on that committee to get the sales tax passed for the streets, and 0.04%, is that what it was on that one? And we have the ability with that ballot question to actually borrow up to $2 million if we need to. But what we've done is we just slowly built up a really good pot to dive into that, into borrowing the money. But with some of these bigger projects, Mill Street, Hospital Road, more preservation maintenance, depending on how expensive they get, we might have to go that route. But what we're trying to do is just build up a pot, use it, build up a pot and use it, so we don't have to borrow.
So hopefully we'll get through tomorrow just fine without any issues. Today went fairly smooth, so I was pretty happy with that. And then finally, it was brought, Monty had questioned me about some recycling concerns, that there was some questions from the community that some of the recycling loads have been going directly, being scuttled into the cell, and that is a true statement. Some of those loads have to go to the cell due to contamination. We are working with the county. The county is the one who has a diversion requirement. The cities do not. And so in order to help the county meet their diversion requirement, we've started implementing this recycling. But they have a limited and a very specific list of things that they cannot take. And so when we get one contaminant in one load, it contaminates the whole load. And there's nothing we can do about it. With that, I would have to say that, the residential curbside pickup has been pretty good. I mean, that's been some pretty good, clean
recycling, and they like that. However, and the cardboard, it's been spot on, it's been great. But in order to receive money back from the state for our recycling, because every load that goes out there gets a fee charged to it that is then returned to the recyclers, such as the city or even the county. We have to make sure that we make this recycling available to everybody, regardless of your location, address, or the time of day. If I'm not mistaken, correct? That's one of the conditions of receiving this stipend back. And so with that, we have our recycling containers sitting across the road from the city shops. And even though we've got signs plastered everywhere, no glass, no plastic bags, we can't take electronics, we can't take styrofoam. There's just so many things that we cannot accept. Well, now it's gotten to the point where people think this is their personal disposal area. And we've been running into where people are throwing their food trash. I've had to dig paper plates with cigarette ashes off of them out of there, just to keep the contamination from happening. So Monty made a great point that what we really need to be doing is some more public education. Let's do some more outreach. One of the things we're talking about, even though we've got signs there, if you're just actually looking to dump, you're not looking up to see that sign. So we're looking at maybe putting banners across the front of the dumpsters themselves. Right now, we're looking into that. Plus, right now, we're also looking at, there's a cultural reason too, because one of the guys actually stopped some guys that were putting in some garbage into the recycling. They said, and they were Hispanic, and they only spoke Spanish. And they said, oh yeah, we were told to just throw it here. So obviously that is not the case. So we're going to go with some bilingual as well. So we're going to put it out there both in English and Spanish, make it very clear what we can accept and what we cannot accept. And there's some, what I'm going to say, some pretty bad actors out there that was brought to my attention, and I can't prove it, and so there's nothing you can do about it, but it was stated to me that one individual purposely does this, just so he'd teach us a lesson. We have dug TVs out of there, we have dug microwaves out of there, we have dug furniture out of those things, and so, you know, we have to make this available to everybody. But when you get an individual that even on a purposeful, not even an accidental, oops, I forgot a piece of glass, nothing like that, purposefully goes out and contaminates it for that very, very reason, then I think that people who are either upset, mad, they have disappointments in what's happening, don't blame the city, and certainly do not blame the county. We don't have a choice. The county has to pay to have that hauled off and recycled. They don't get it for free. Right now, this county is not charging us as long as it is clean. But once you get contamination in that thing, they have no other choice but to send it to the cell. And so, we don't have a MRF here, Materials Recycling Facility, where dump truck just backs up and then you got a bunch of workers just sorting out all the bad stuff. That doesn't happen here. So we have to make sure that it's very, very clean.
Dale, can I just ask a quick question?
Certainly here, yeah.
Is the city pickup being picked up separately from what's out here?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. And I've had that. And then I think Monty even wanted me to see, well, how much is that? What is what? And don't get me wrong, even some of the curbside residential pickup stuff has been contaminated. And my crew has been very good about catching is what they can. And they say it works. But, to quantify how much is actually contaminated at any one given time, can't say. But I just want to bring it to the council's attention that if you do hear those comments, and I heard there were some pretty upset people about it, well, don't be upset at the city, and certainly do not be upset at the county. Because, we've got a great public-public partnership with this recycling, and I'd like to see it continue. But you should be actually looking at those individuals that are contaminating the waste stream. And so, that my suggestion is better public education on these open dumpsters out here. We're going to have to do something to bring it to their attention. Don't be bringing us plastic bags. Don't be putting styrofoam in there. Don't be putting glass. Don't be putting in your food waste, cigarette ashes, you name it. It's all been dumped in there.
What color are the bins?
Blue.
They're blue?
They're blue. And it says it's very clearly marked for recycling.
Maybe some security might be option too?
In what manner, though? Because we got to make it available to the public
Some
24/7.
Even just a camera
Yeah.
to possibly catch somebody that's throwing something in there purposefully,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, that might be an option if we can't get it to slow down.
yeah.
Again, I just want to bring it so everybody's aware of what's going on. Not all of it's going into the landfill. A lot of it's being diverted. But that stuff that is contaminated, whether it's by lack of education or some yahoo doing it on purpose, they're the ones that need to be talked to, not us. We do what we can with what we got, so.
Dale, what would be the possibility of the dumpsters being different colors for different items that can go in them?
Well, yeah, we can do that. That's certainly an option. However, that's kind of defeating the purpose of single stream. Single stream is a commingling of cans, newspapers, plastics that have been cleaned, those types of items.
My thought was just that they would be green, because as you're taught going up through school, reduce, reuse, recycle, the emblems are green, they're always green. So that was just my thought, that's why I asked if they were blue.
And our other dumpsters are green. Our regular city dumpsters are green. I think that would just
Right.
be
That looks real
kind of an attractive nuisance, making them green.
That's why I asked what color they were, because I was just hoping to help that Mine Word Association.
I've seen a lot of blue recycling containers.
Blue is your normal.
Do you feel having a large dumpster out there would be more of a headache than it's worth? Like, so that if somebody shows up with a bag, they see the sign, they throw possibly that in a dumpster, or do you think it just turned into a citywide dump spot?
Citywide dump spot. Got, the one individual, well, I'm not gonna pay for a third toter, I'm just gonna take it over there and throw it in the recycled dumpsters. Oh, well, I'm gonna throw it in the green one here. So, and again, you would be surprised, maybe you wouldn't be, of what we pull out of those recycling. I mean, furniture, for crying in the butt, we don't recycle furniture.
I have a completely different question, if you're done and ready for questions. And forgive me for not knowing, is it our property that sits between hospital and the golf course?
No,
It's not our
no,
property.
it's not even in the city.
Is that our right of way at hospital?
We have about 7.5 feet on either, from the back of curb.
Which are,
Hospital between 76 and Mill?
you're talking about the big open field?
Yeah.
So.
Part of it is, but.
Yeah, so part of it's our property, the first 300 feet deep going in from Hospital Road towards Golf Course is a real estate company that owns that. And then on Mill Street, the first 150 feet in is theirs, then we have the center part.
And our right of way is 7.5 feet off the roads?
No, I'm saying from back of curb outward
Okay.
is where our right of way ends, 7.5 feet, so.
And then CDOT's right of way is from the edge of the off-ramp, correct?
I believe so, yes. It's
Okay.
just
I
wherever
was-
you see the fencing, that's where their right of way is, but they do control access for 300 feet past their right of way.
Okay, just something maybe we could take offline and I could just talk to you about. There's some visibility issues there coming off the ramp. And I'm afraid that with all the weeds and everything that we're gonna find some liability for the visibility. And I didn't know if it was our property or not.
It's not our property, it's not even in our jurisdiction. This would be
Okay.
something you would want to bring up with the county, maybe
With the
visit with
county?
the county commissioners.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you.
Thank you, Dale.
Thank you, sir.
Joanne?
Rickens.
Where's the chicken jar? You owe $1.
He doesn't more than $1. I'm just gonna piggyback real quickly for 1 second on the recycling. The cardboard recycling works absolutely fantastic. We take that out there, they send it off, they get a check, we get 50% of the recycling for however many tons we turn in a month. We get a check once a month from the county. Plus, that's where I always every year talk about the rebate that we get from the state for recycling. That's all the cardboard recycling that we're getting that rebate off. And we got 2 of those this year. So that program is working fantastic. The things that I needed to touch on, were just real quickly, a couple items. The county assessor is supposed to give us our property tax assessment for 2022 by August 25th. We have received that, but due to some Senate bill that had a change in it, I have to do a little bit of research on this, so I'm not gonna bring any dollar values tonight. I'll have it at the next council meeting to tell you. It was very positive, but I wanna verify that it was as positive as we felt like.
It was too good to be true.
Yeah, it's kind of let's look into this. And then the other thing, just to remind council that on October the 13th, our budget calendar, and by state statute, I have to, well, I guess it's October 11th. It's actually October 15th. I have to have a budget presented to the council. We will do it on October the 11th. It's by no means a final budget. It's a very basic little budget. It's nothing major. It's not even close to being done or permanent. But just let you know that we'll submit one. We won't have to discuss it or anything like that. Okay.
Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Dan Crum?
Nothing tonight. Happy to answer any questions.
Anything for Dan? All right, well, Monty Torres. I'm
Okay.
sorry, Dee, I skipped you, but I'll come back to you.
Okay, quickly, everyone received a school letter in front of your desk here. That's in response to a letter that the city had sent out with some concerns in regards to some of our land use processes. And so we also in that letter had explained that we were hoping to get coordinated a city council, school board joint meeting just to discuss a few issues. And we did get a response back from the superintendent that they wouldn't all meet, but they have appointed a couple of their school board members, the president and one other school board member, Hodgson, the principal?
The director of the secondary campus.
Director?
He's director.
Okay, so director from there, and then Bill Wilson himself that will meet with the city council on October 11th. And so we'll have a little presentation for the council at that point in time, and then we'll see where the discussions go that day. Progressive 15, I'm not sure if any of you have an interest, but I'm gonna send down a copy of, it's kind of hard to see, but that's as blown up as I can make it. But it sounds like this year a really good opportunity, a conference, and it's local. So I thought I would just encourage anyone who had the time. It is a 2-day conference, and if you have an interest, just get with Miranda and let them know we can get you registered. But it sounded like a really good one this year. And then we are, as was mentioned earlier, working on the school districts. It's gonna take a little more time than what we originally thought. A few hoops that we've got to jump through, but the school district can connect to our current water system because there are existing taps there to get the sprinklers going if they choose to level it or grade it and then put sod down in a new sprinkler system. And so we're gonna keep pushing that one along. We also might see a lot of downtown in the Clayton Street around the traffic signal. There's a lot of activity with the guys that do the locates, 811. They're out there doing a lot of locates right now. And it appears CDOT is studying that intersection and maybe wanting to put in new traffic signals. And probably a year or so ago, I reported to council about there's a possibility of them removing on Colorado Avenue, the traffic signal there. But we were asking them not to take that out, but to upgrade it at this time. And then downtown Brush and Clayton Street, they were gonna look at putting in the new style traffic signal arms and lights. And our request was to make them black to match the other light poles in the area, just to make it look good. And so we're gonna be reaching out this week just to see where they're at, because we're hoping that they are planning for it sometime soon, but they do take in consideration making it match the rest of the poles down there, just for the aesthetics of it. And then two more things. We are starting to move forward on our water study. We have multiple water studies going on right now, but we're also gonna kick off a little bit more water study on a additional water supply system for the city. And so more of that's gonna come down the line, but we're gonna set up a meeting with the Water Advisory Committee first, and then we'll bring that committee to the city council. And last thing is, we probably should at some point have a joint meeting with the fire board. We keep saying we're gonna meet with them consistently, and so we met with them probably 6 months ago. Does that sound right?
It's been a
About
while.
6 months ago. And we just before the budget, their budgets are locked in, ours are locked in, that we're talking, making sure everyone's still on track with splitting certain costs and those type of things. And so, Tad, I'll be working with you to get that set up. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Monty. Any questions?
Would it be possible to get a copy of the letter you sent the school board so that I kind of know what the response
Yeah,
is?
can you get that letter? We'll get it to Amanda and she'll send it to everyone.
Okay. Dee, what do you have for us?
Okay, this is for council and mayor. On October 13th from 2 to 4:30 at Pettis Park, there is an open house for Dwight Anderson's retirement. And also, Kim needs an RSVP by October 8th there's a retirement dinner for Dwight on October 16th at the golf course at 5:30.
How long has Dwight been with the city?
35.
35.
That's awesome.
Anything else?
34 in 10 months or something. But,
Okay, let's kill.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dee. All right, mayor and council reports. Does any,
I do have one, I'm sorry, I skipped
No.
it. Also, the candidate forum will be held Tuesday, October 5th, from 6 to 8 at the course.
okay. All right. So, any councilors have anything they'd like to share?
Just that we had a great conference. It was fantastic. Learned a lot. Met a lot of incredible people who are very intelligent and helpful. It was an amazing experience to see so many people in legislature and in councils and cities around the state willing to help others so that we can be the most successful. The only challenge with CML is all of their cities are much larger than ours and have much bigger problems and much bigger budgets. So that's going to be the thing, is to learn how to take what we have learned and apply it to our smaller city. But I'm really excited because it was very informational. So I appreciate the ability to go.
There was quite a few small towns there. When they do the cocktail hour, come with me.
The small towns-
Everybody's my friend, you know?
So the small towns were well represented, but not when it came to the sessions. The sessions that were being instructed felt very targeted toward larger cities. But it was interesting to hear too about the statistics and the lack of newspapers around the state as they continue to decline. So I wish they were here tonight, but I'm very grateful that we have our newspaper because I know so many of our citizens wouldn't get the information that they get if we were strictly an online city. So I appreciate that we have the newspaper.
I have to agree, I've attended many of CML's conferences over the years. I've always found them to be beneficial, networking, wonderful networking opportunities. But I would challenge you to write to CML about the problem you're talking about for small towns, so maybe next year they can do some training or sessions.
That would be great, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Anything else?
I just want to acknowledge Jeffrey Hammer. I see you out there, and I just want you to know we have your letter, and you're not being ignored, but we can't really do anything about it tonight, so.
Thanks for coming, Jeff, and listening to all of us talk about everything. Okay, we're gonna be moving into executive session in just a minute here. So I'll need a council to move us into executive session. Please use your little slip if you're gonna make the motion, because we have to be very accurate in how we say that, so. Who would-
Anything into farm first, is that correct?
Yeah, I think the farm one was listed
Yeah, I
first.
think so. I'd say Sunster School. Oh, there it is.
Sorry, guys, I appreciate you hanging out. You're always welcome to come back for work session.
Okay, who would like to make the motion to go in?
I'll do it.
Okay,
And it is for farm leases, correct?
yes.
I move pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes Title 24, Article 6, Section 402, at subsection 4A, for the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of any real, personal, or other property interest. The matter to be discussed is farm leases. Do you want me to continue? It's all inclusive.
Yeah, with Central School.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes Title 24, Article 6, Section 402, at subsection 4E, for determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, excuse me, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. The matter to be discussed is central school incentives.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as we get started here,